This is Scott Becker with the Becker Business and the Becker Private Equity Podcast. Today's discussion is individual investments. So here's the issue, and I thought I would do this review. I am generally an investor in index funds, primarily in S&P 500 index funds, and I'm an investor in treasuries. Separately, we've got some other investments in private equity and VC funds and some other assets. But I have also over the years invested in a handful of companies individually, and a lot of those came out of not any deep-seated thoughts and convictions, but rather investing alongside people like Warren Buffett and what they invest in, or investing in a couple of things I felt like I knew a little bit better about than others, and so forth and so on. So I thought I would do is quickly go through six of the stocks that I have invested in directly, and I can sort of somewhat tell you where I came to these from and so forth, and I'll just walk through those very quickly. So one is Palantir Technologies. That's my biggest winner. It's up 150% year to date. And this really came out of the conviction that Peter Thiel's a genius and Alex Karp is a genius, and hope that they have their genius and know what they're doing. The second stock I'm invested in directly is Bank of America. It's one of the great bank franchises in the country. I really end up investing in that, like I invest in the next stock we'll talk about, because it was one of the phases where I was trying to follow some of the guidance of Warren Buffett and invest in some of the Buffett-like stocks, and Bank of America was always one of those. I would have been much better off in the long run having invested in some of his other stocks, but I did invest in Bank of America. Third, I also invested in a similar vein as that Warren Buffett mindset in Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola so far is up 1.72% year to date. So that obviously has not been a winner. Bank of America is up 21% year to date. Palantir, as we mentioned, is up to 150% year to date. Two more stocks that I invested in a few years ago. And again, I invested in these stocks basically around the conviction that their cloud businesses would drive a lot of profitability. And that's been true and untrue. Amazon, I invested in Amazon and Microsoft. Amazon's up 3.5% year to date. It has turned out that there's much more competition in that cloud space than there was a couple of years ago when I first made my investment in Amazon, and their cloud business is slowing some. Next, I've invested in Microsoft directly. Microsoft's up 26% year to date. And again, it was really based on this concept that they had a great business, plus they had the cloud business in Azure, and it was worth really trying to ride side by side with that. Finally, the last company I've invested in is Astera Labs, and Astera Labs is up now 28% year to date. At one point, it was up a lot more. And this is something where I invested in a hedge fund, and that hedge fund made a distribution of shares when Astera Labs went public. And that's why I ended up with Astera Labs stock. It wasn't any sort of thought for myself. And then once I've had it, I felt sort of paralyzed because I was afraid it might be the stock that ended up being a huge winner. And if I sold it, I would be a moron. So I've held on to it, but not out of any great conviction other than I own it now. And I don't want to have FOMO, the fear of missing out, that it goes through the roof, and I should have held it. Again, my positions in all these individual stocks are not huge. I do find it really interesting to follow some of them. My core investing is in the SP index funds, and it tends to take away some of the aberrations of having huge winners and huge losers that you can have with individual stocks. In any event, thank you so much for listening to the Becker Business, the Becker Private Equity Podcast. I hope you find this interesting and enjoyable. I'd love to hear your feedback. My number 773-766-5322. Please feel free to text with your thoughts. We'd love to hear them. Thank you so much for listening to the Becker Business and the Becker Private Equity Podcast. And thank you to our producer, Chanel Bunger. Thank you very much.